Welcome back to Ask Dad. On today's video, we're talking about calming down. Today's world has a lot of things going on. If you watch any of the influencers on social media, or a lot of them, you're going to see things that talk about everything going to pot. We're talking about political turmoil, stock market in turmoil, stock market going to zero, the world ending, war on every corner. And while it is scary, it's places we've been before. And what we can learn from history is we all need to calm down. Now, what I mean by that is not freezing, not doing nothing, but keeping everything in context. Understanding that yes, there may be some influence on the items that are in question, but the way we react to those can have a dramatic impact on our future lives. And I'm talking projecting out 20, 30 years. So let's take a couple of these one at a time. The presidential turmoil right now is probably front and center. The mainstream media is talking about how each candidate, and depending on which mainstream media outlet you listen to, is talking about how each candidate will win over the population, will affect the stock market, will affect our lives on a daily basis. And the reality is presidential elections don't really affect a whole lot. As far as stock market performance, for example, if we look at this chart right here, it talks about what has happened historically when the White House was controlled by a Democrat or a Republican, Congress controlled by either the same or different or mixed, the outcome, and the average 3-month S&P performance during that period. And what you can see, just without going into the weeds too far, but over the course of history, they have had a very minimal effect. And what this shows us is the presidential election on its own has very little effect long-term over the U.S. economy. Now, can they do things that increase prices? Absolutely. But it does not affect the overall performance more than the underlying strength of the economy. So in this particular scenario, don't let a presidential election freak you out on all the decisions you make in your life. Now, of course, we want to be informed, we want to vote, we want to make the right decisions for ourselves and for our family and our loved ones, but we need to keep it in context of what's going on. The other thing that's on everyone's mind right now is, well, the stock market's at its peak and it's going to crash because it can't always keep going up. And there's truth to that. There's absolutely truth to that. However, we've been through this cycle before. I would say in the last 5 years, we've had a lot of ups and downs and threats and risks and everything else that have possibly come in. And what we've learned over history is the stock market has peaks and valleys. What we need to be doing is looking at the overall strength of the stock market driven by the strength of the economy and make our decisions accordingly. Let's take a quick look at a graph here. So on this graph, it shows us the market crash timelines over a 150-year period from 1870 roughly to 2024. And here's what we see. If we go through the historic stock market, and if you were to just take a line and lay it across the top of this and lay it across the bottom of this, you'll see that there have been pretty consistent peaks and valleys in the stock market, taking into account some of the major events, for example, World War I and influenza, which caused millions of deaths. We go here to the 1929 crash, the Great Depression. We go into World War II. We go into inflationary bear markets in the 70s and 80s. We go into the lost decade around the early 2000s, and we go into the Great Financial Crisis here in about 2008. And what we see is there's been an upward trend, and people that were able to make their investing decisions accordingly and rationally have been able to survive. Now, does that mean people didn't get wiped out in the market? Of course not. There have been people that have been severely hurt in the stock market. And what people generally say is if you need money in the next 3 to 5 years, well, don't put that in high-risk stocks. You may have a mix of stocks and bonds in your portfolio, but you don't want to have all of your eggs in one basket. There's an apt analogy. So, for example, let's jump in here to the 1929 crash. Now, this wiped so many people out. We've got better safeguards in the market than we did then. However, there's always a chance that you go in and out of the market and that you can lose money over the short term. Now, if you were in good quality stocks, not high risk stocks, and let's say that you were not able to time the market and get out, well, you would have been severely hurt for a period of about 20 years when everything started getting back. In about from 1929, 39, 49, you would have been coming back out 20 years later, and you would have been able to be made whole. Now, my recommendation is when you have a run-up like this, you can see there was a severe run-up, if people would have taken a little bit of money out, dollar cost averaged on the way out as well as on the way in, they would have been prepared for this crash and been able to put some more money in on the way down, which then led to a much better run up and could have been done better financially that way. Same thing in pretty much any crash. Now, the point of this is not to get into the weeds on this, but it is to say, let's make rational decisions as we're going through our lives to make sure that we're not hurt significantly by major stock market, major political events, major other events in our lives. So here's what I want to talk about. In making decisions, guardrail to guardrail decisions, meaning going side to side to side, back and forth, is not what we want to do. We want to be looking at what is our path right now, and is it working for us? If we're deviating, let's make a little correction, just like you're driving down the freeway. If you're driving down the freeway, you've got guardrails on both sides. If you make a bad decision and you swing over this way, you don't want to overcorrect and hit the guardrail on this side, figure that's bad, come back and hit the guardrail on this side. What you want to be doing is making little course corrections. Is my investing strategy working right now? If not, okay, let's make a little course correction. Is my relationship on track? Well, let's make a little course correction. Is my job going the way I want it to? Well, no, let's make a little course correction. And that little course correction could be, let's talk to my boss. Let's make a plan for my career. Let's figure out how I get where I want to be. Then if that doesn't work, then let's make a decision to change jobs, but not get mad, leave the job. Get mad, leave the job, because that doesn't help anybody. And then it actually hurts you long term as you gain a reputation for a job hopper. So what tools do we have? What tools can we use to help ourselves not make those guardrail to guardrail decisions? The first one that I would say is pro-con list. It's kind of basic, kind of old-fashioned, but it still works. And you may be able to do this on your phone, on paper and pen, or paper and pen, but write down the pros and the cons. What gets you where you want to be long term? What small decisions, small course corrections can you make right now before you need to make a big course correction? If a big course correction is needed, make it once. If it doesn't work out, analyze your decision-making abilities. Because what you don't want to do is have to keep making those large decisions, because large sweeping decisions generally impact you long-term by making a big change that stops your progress. Imagine driving down a freeway and you have to make a 90-degree turn. You have to slow down for that. Then you get back up to speed, and if you have to make another 90-degree turn, that stops your progress also. The same thing happens in your investing. The same thing happens in your job strategy. The same thing happens in relationships. If you're building a relationship with someone and you keep on having major blowouts, that's stopping your progress from growing together as a couple. So all of these things will help you progress in every aspect of your life if you use the same strategy. So after making a pro-con list, you also may want to talk to a trusted advisor. Now, why do I say it in that order? Well, people who are helping you, especially if they're helping you for free, aren't going to want to come up, or they're not going to be able to come up with a strategy for your life that is good for you over and over again. If, however, you've already taken the steps to come up with a pro-con list to decide, well, I think this is the strategy I want to go on. This is how I want to do it. Then you talk to a trusted advisor. And by trusted advisor, I could mean a few different things. It could be a parent that you trust. It could be a religious leader. It could be a mentor. It could be God. It could be a lot of different people or a lot of different aspects that you could bring in. But a trusted advisor is someone who has success in the area that you are asking. And that doesn't mean a rich person. It doesn't mean a poor person. It doesn't necessarily mean anyone in particular, other than they're successful in the area for which you want the advice. So if you want advice on financial pieces, you don't talk to someone who's broke and always going through money problems. If you're asking for relationship advice, you want to talk to someone who has been successful in relationships, etc. Now, that means you've already done your research. It means you've already established your pro-con list. It means you kind of have a plan. You may not have a fully baked plan, but you have a plan of how you want to handle this. You talk to your trusted advisor. Don't talk to everyone. Don't broadcast it out there to social media, to 500 different people. This is your plan, and someone who you trust will help you fine-tune it. Once you do that, execute the plan. Is it working? Keep tabs. And again, make course corrections. Not sweeping changes, not guardrail to guardrail changes, but make little changes and make sure that you're keeping on the path that you want to go on. Sweeping changes are only needed generally if you're completely on the wrong path. If you are in high risk stocks and losing money every single month and it doesn't look like it's going to change, obviously make a sweeping change. If you're in an abusive relationship that's not going to change, get out. Those are situations where sweeping changes are needed. If you're in a work relationship where, and I'm talking relationship with your job, where your boss is just horrible, cussing you out every day, demeaning you, and that's been the pattern, and he won't change, and you can't go to human resources and get that boss changed, yep, you probably need to make a change in that scenario too. But generally, most people are in changes where small course corrections will help them out. Follow your strategy. If you need to make a big change, do it on your terms, and that will help you be more consistent over the course of your life. I hope this video has been helpful. If it has, please give us a like. If this is the type of content you would like to see more of, please do subscribe. And if you know someone who could benefit from this, please do share this video. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one.